fall into the gap between arousal and orgasm, between itch and scratch, between waking and sleeping, between life and death, exists bardo, literally intermediate state. Tibetan Buddhist monks, and apparently soft rocker Sting, try to extend the duration of bardo while maintaining consciousness within it, for they believe that profound insights into human existence are revealed in between. Bardo is an apt metaphor for the physical and conceptual gaps between text and image, what I like to call fictive synapses. In neurology, a synapse is a gap between neurons that must be traversed for us to do, think, feel, or experience anything and everything. Ergo, whatever information is communicated across the fictive and physical synapse creates not only the fiction, but the fiction writer. We are in these gaps, are writers, are readers. Genetic makeup affords some greater skills in maneuvering across synapses. Others close literal and figurative gaps between innate and learned skills through ongoing experimentation, education, and experience that multiplies neurological paths. Still others, who are innately talented, grow toward intellectual stagnation, forming deep neurological ruts of repetitive thinking because they do not self-reflectively explore or experience the known as it relates to the unknown. The facts of our physiological makeup are critical. For to best explore how to write and read multimedia fiction, you must expand the moment between image and text and be conscious of what is happening in that synapse and in you, emotionally, intellectually, physiologically. You must be aware of why you're thinking, what you're thinking, when and where, culturally, you're thinking it. For an image that means one thing in America, home on the range, may mean another in Hindustan, home of the sacred cow. The synapse between text and image is plastic, shifting as you shift in your ability to decipher mixed media fiction and the multimedia world around you. Existential bricolage transmutes into an intellectual and emotional response reflecting an environment wherein daily, hourly, second by time, fractured beyond measure, we absorb and combine and create narratives of the textual, visual, and oral information with which we're deluged. The wider the conceptual and often physical synapse between text and image, the more processing and creativity required by the reader, thus more Hebbian learning. Likewise, the writer who aims for expansiveness becomes the hindsight reader of his or her own work, making future creative and editing decisions based on external influences and the questions triggered by and the success of a particular text plus image. Success in this case being defined solely by the writer, based on that writer's intent and projected outcomes. In other words, outside critics are expected to fall into the gap of the writer's intent and take an exploratory swim. Drowning is entirely their responsibility. And if it sounds as if I'm negating the role of critic in contemporary society, I am not entirely. I am negating the role of willful ignorance, of critics interested only in literary plot and characterization and believability and TV-ish emotional gratification. As if deeply intellectual and conceptual pursuits are not emotionally gratifying, as if the reader is not, in effect, the ultimate plot, fascinating and original as a consequence of the unique parameters of her or his life, described and inscribed and proscribed or prescribed by unique physiological synapses. For example, when an ink and paper book functions as only a fragment of a wider fiction that is fundamentally about the reader's physical participation, as witness to and inhabitant of horror, including the reader's fingerprints left behind on a book's pages, to be later forensically dusted, and associative repulsive odors lingering in the reader's nostrils and therefore memory of likewise repulsive pictures and words. Synaptic interpretation of multimedia fiction is as dependent on knowledge of visual elements as it is in the visual arts. Composition, style, size, color, relationship, plane, line, interstice, juxtaposition, and perhaps texture and odor too, and these in relationship to literary and visual art history. The expectation, not unreasonable but sadly optimistic, is that the reader as viewer will be able to decode the work from top layer to bottom, side to side, in and out, using tools acquired through study, whether academic or autodidactic. This applies to the visual attributes of text, too, because typography is another mode of communication, a legitimate art discipline, with hundreds of thousands of fonts extant and hundreds of new fonts created each year thanks to computer technology and the perpetual quest for the unique and the apropos. Helvetica typeface, for example, became so prominent in the 20th century that Gary Hustwit produced a documentary film about it last year. Book text can function invisibly because of tradition, or convey content and emotional codes through appearance and cultural and historical references. The visceral response to Gothic fonts like Fraktur results from the typeface's hook and scythe serifs, its association with religious manuscripts, and, more acutely, the occult-loving Third Reich. The font was later co-opted by the heavy metal music industry to appeal to its buying audience, predominantly angry, angst-ridden white male teenagers seeking to horrify their parents. Gothic fonts were then co-opted by the rap industry to ease the transition from metal to rap for that very same audience. Advertisers know the influence of text as image. They count on it, and count on every damn resultant dollar, and count on your conscious ignorance and subconscious knowledge of text and image code.